Hello guys, this is your friend Itachi Fanfic 3.0 and we are back a new fanfic story which is: what if Naruto had confessed his feelings to Temari the moment he tucked her hair behind her ear? How would she have reacted? Let's start fanfic without wasting more time. The sun dipped behind the sandstone cliffs of the hidden sand village, leaving streaks of orange across the sky that seemed to mirror the warm color of Naruto's jacket. He had arrived in Suna at dawn, carrying with him not only a scroll of diplomatic requests from the Leaf, but also an eagerness he couldn't quite explain. He had visited Suna many times before, yet this time felt different, as though the wind itself whispered an invitation meant only for him. Temari stood near the entrance gate, her arms crossed loosely. She was waiting, though she would deny it if anyone asked. The air carried a faint coolness that played with the ends of her blonde hair. When Naruto approached, grinning like he had just won a lottery he didn't remember entering, Temari allowed herself a small smile. Quiet, almost hidden, but unmistakably genuine. Their greeting was simple, as it always was. There were no grand gestures, no awkward stumbles. Just two warriors who had shared far too many battles to need any dramatic display. And yet something new sparkled beneath their casual words. Naruto noticed it first in the way Temari lingered before turning away. The way her eyes softened for a heartbeat longer than normal. The way her voice dipped. Calm, warm, and unexpectedly gentle. Temari noticed it too. In Naruto's new maturity. His confidence that had sharpened with age. His smile that no longer only expressed boundless energy, but also a steady sense of belonging. He wasn't just the boy who dreamed of being Hokage anymore. He was someone who fought for bonds, protected them, and cherished them. When they walked through the village streets together, the citizens of Suna glanced curiously. It wasn't unusual for the Leaf's hero to visit, but this time, he was not accompanied by a large squad nor an official escort. Only Temari walked beside him, matching his pace, her steps quieter than usual, as if she were subconsciously letting him guide the rhythm. They spent the first day reviewing alliance documents, discussing joint training exercises, and evaluating missions that required cooperation between their villages. But beneath the formal duties, something subtle unfolded. It began with small things. Naruto offering to carry heavy scrolls without being asked, or Temari making tea instead of leaving it to an aide. None of it was intentional. But all of it mattered. That evening, as the sky darkened into a deep violet, Temari invited Naruto to walk along the dunes outside the village. She told herself it was simply a chance for fresh air after a long day of discussions. She didn't mention the real reason, that the desert sunset had always reminded her of quiet strength, and somehow, Naruto fit into that image now. As they walked across the sand, grains crunching softly beneath their feet, Naruto talked about his recent missions, his hopes for the future, and the responsibility he felt as a rising shinobi whose name carried weight beyond his village walls. Temari listened more carefully than she intended. There was a new depth in him, something steady and sure that she respected. When she spoke, she told him about her own role as Suna's strategic advisor, the burden of guiding her brothers, the silent pressure that came with being both fierce and dependable at all times. Naruto listened with surprising focus, nodding at the right moments, encouraging her without interrupting. They stopped when they reached the top of a dune and looked out at the shifting sands below. The desert glowed under the last traces of sunlight, turning gold and crimson like a living tapestry. Temari found herself breathing more slowly, more fully. Naruto glanced at her, noticing how the wind lifted the strands of her hair and how peaceful she looked when she wasn't trying to look strong for others. Something tugged at his chest. Something unfamiliar, but comforting. Temari felt the weight of his gaze and turned to meet it. Their eyes locked, hers sharp yet thoughtful, his warm and unguarded. For a brief moment, neither looked away. Something old and something new passed between them, a connection forged years ago in war but now reshaped by quiet moments. Temari finally spoke, her voice softer than the desert wind. You've changed, Naruto. He scratched his cheek, flustered yet smiling. Have I? I hope it's for the better. It is, she replied simply. And she meant it. The quiet stretched between them, not awkward but heavy with unspoken possibilities. They walked back together, closer than before. Their steps weren't synced intentionally, but every so often their hands brushed. Not enough to clasp, but enough for both to feel the warmth and wonder what it would be like if they didn't move away. As they reached the village gate, Temari paused. She wanted to say something more, something honest. But years of discipline held her tongue. Naruto sensed her hesitation and waited, but she only managed a soft goodnight, the kind that lingered even after the words were gone. Naruto went to his guest room wondering why his heart felt lighter and heavier at the same time. Temari returned to her quarters with a faint smile she didn't bother to hide, even from herself. Neither realized it yet, but the wind had already changed direction, carrying with it a bond that neither battle nor distance could easily break. Sleep came slowly for both. Not because of worry, but because their thoughts kept returning to the same thing, the unexpected comfort of being beside someone who understood their strength, their burdens, and their quiet hopes. Tonight, something had begun. Something neither had planned for. But something both would keep returning to. Night wrapped itself around the hidden sand village like a soft cloak, quiet and expansive. Temari sat by her window, the moonlight falling across her desk. Papers lay scattered before her. Mission reports, alliance summaries, training evaluations, but her focus slipped away from all of them. Her thoughts returned again and again to Naruto. She tried to reason with herself. She had always respected him. Admired his strength, his persistence, his ability to turn the tide of a battle simply by being himself. None of that was new. She had felt it years ago, even in the chaos of the Chunin exams, though she never said it aloud. But today had been different. In the solitude of her room, she admitted a truth she had ignored for too long. Naruto was no longer the loud, unpredictable kid she once teased. He was a man now, steady, bright, and unexpectedly gentle. And for the first time, Temari found herself wondering not just what he could become, but what they could become. Across the village, Naruto lay awake on the futon in the guest room, hands behind his head, staring at the ceiling. Sleep refused to come. His mind replayed their walk through the desert, her calm voice, her rare softness, and the spark in her eyes he hadn't noticed before. He wondered if she trusted him differently now, or if he was simply seeing her more clearly than before. Naruto had grown used to the weight of leadership and expectation, but tonight he felt something else entirely, something lighter, yet stronger. A pull toward Temari that made him uneasy and excited at the same time. He wasn't good at understanding these kinds of feelings. He could fight armies, defeat powerful enemies, withstand impossible pain, but emotions were their own battlefield. Even so, he didn't want to look away from this one. He wanted to understand it. Before he realized it, he smiled to himself, remembering how Temari's expression softened when she looked at the desert. He wanted to see that expression again. The next morning arrived quietly, with faint sunlight filtering through Naruto's window. He stepped outside early, hoping the cool morning air would clear his mind. The village was slowly waking up. Vendors opened stalls, shinobi passed through the streets with scrolls tucked under their arms, and the smell of warm bread drifted from a nearby bakery. Temari stood at the far end of the courtyard, speaking with one of the guards. She was dressed in her usual black attire, but something about her seemed more relaxed today. Perhaps it was the calmer expression. Or the way she turned her head slightly, as though sensing someone watching her. Naruto felt heat rise to his cheeks when she caught him looking. Temari raised an eyebrow, hiding an amused smile. You're up early, she commented as she approached. Naruto rubbed the back of his head. Yeah, well, couldn't sleep much. Temari looked at him more carefully than usual. Is something bothering you? Naruto hesitated. Maybe the truth was too complicated. Or maybe it was simple, just difficult to say. I guess my mind was just busy, he finally answered. Temari nodded in understanding. To her surprise, she felt the exact same way. They walked through the village, discussing training schedules and alliance updates, but beneath their words ran a quiet undercurrent neither tried to hide anymore. Even the villagers noticed how naturally they moved together now, two leaders from different lands, yet in perfect rhythm. As they neared the training grounds, a group of sand genin spotted Naruto and rushed over eagerly. They admired him, asked him questions, laughed at his stories. Naruto interacted with them easily, but Temari's gaze lingered on him, on the way he encouraged every child, praised their efforts, and spoke with sincerity that made even the shyest genin smile. She realized then that his strength didn't come from jutsu alone. His strength came from the way he touched people's lives. When the children finally ran back to training, Naruto turned to Temari almost shyly. Sorry about that. Guess I got carried away. Temari shook her head. No, it's good to see. They learn a lot from you. There was something deeper in her voice. Something he couldn't quite name but felt all the same. The wind picked up between them, warm and gentle. Temari's hair shifted, brushing against her cheek. Without thinking, Naruto reached out instinctively to tuck the stray strand behind her ear. The moment lasted only a second, yet it seemed to stretch into something larger. Temari froze, surprised, but not displeased. Naruto's fingers brushed her skin lightly before he realized what he was doing and pulled back quickly. Sorry. He stammered, flustered. Temari swallowed, pretending her heart hadn't just skipped in a way it never had before. It's fine, she said softly. But her voice betrayed her just a little. Naruto stared at his hand, wondering why something so small had felt so significant. Temari looked away, attempting to regain her composure, though her cheeks held a faint warmth she hoped he wouldn't notice. Neither spoke for a long moment. But neither stepped away. If anyone had asked them then what was happening, both would have denied it. They would have called it a misunderstanding or a momentary lapse. But deep down, both felt it clearly, the quiet shifting of something inside them. A feeling that had waited for years, buried under responsibilities and unspoken expectations. Now it had begun to rise, slow but unstoppable. The desert wind brushed past them again, carrying with it a promise neither had yet acknowledged, but both were beginning to feel. A promise of something new. Something unexpected. Something that would soon become impossible to ignore. The sun rose slowly over the hidden sand village, spilling warm gold across the vast desert and the rooftops that shimmered faintly under the heat. Naruto had arrived only a few hours earlier, but Suna already felt different from all his past visits. The air was calm, the wind gentler, and there was a strange sense of anticipation he couldn't explain, not yet. Temari stood waiting for him at the gate, arms loosely crossed, her expression composed but her eyes softer than usual. The moment she saw him walking toward her, something quiet shifted in her chest. It wasn't dramatic, not sudden, but a subtle awareness she hadn't felt in years. Naruto greeted her with his trademark grin, warm and effortless. Hey Temari. Long time. She allowed herself a small smile that she rarely showed anyone outside her family. You're early. He shrugged lightly. I guess I was excited to be here. Temari blinked at the honesty in his voice. She pretended not to read too much into it, but the warmth lingered. They walked into the village together, speaking about alliance matters and training updates. Yet beneath every practical word, a deeper thread wove itself silently, connecting them without effort. Throughout the morning, They sat in Suna's council room reviewing scrolls, discussing joint missions, and exchanging strategies. Naruto was more composed than she remembered, still cheerful, but steadier, wiser. Temari found herself watching him more than usual, noticing the confidence in his posture, the calm in his voice, the way he listened closely before giving opinions that carried clarity and heart. By midday, they took a break. The sun was high and the desert heat pressed down like a warm blanket. Temari suggested they walk near the edge of the dunes to catch a breeze. She told herself it was a practical decision. She refused to admit, even to herself, that she simply enjoyed his company. As they stepped out onto the sand, the wind lifted loose grains into gentle swirls. Naruto stared across the endless dunes, mesmerized. "It's beautiful," he murmured. Temari followed his gaze. "I always thought so. Even when it's harsh, it's honest." Naruto looked at her instead of the desert. "Yeah, I get that." She felt her stomach tighten. Not uncomfortably, but in a way she wasn't used to. She turned away quickly, focusing on the horizon. Their footsteps made soft trails in the sand as they walked. Naruto talked about his growth, his dreams, his responsibilities as a leader training for greater roles. Temari listened with quiet pride, noticing how he had matured into someone who could hold the weight of a village without losing his warmth. When she finally spoke, she shared her own struggles, guiding Suna's strategy, supporting Gaara, balancing strength with diplomacy. Naruto didn't interrupt. He simply listened, truly listened, with empathy she seldom received from people around her. The wind brushed against her cheek as she paused. Naruto's eyes were on her, steady and sincere. "It must be hard," he said softly. "It is," she replied, matching his honesty. "But I don't mind it." He smiled. "You're stronger than people know." Temari's breath caught. For just a moment. Compliments rarely affected her, but something about his voice, his sincerity, the way he looked at her without expecting anything in return, it stirred something deep inside. As the sun began to set, they climbed a tall dune and watched the sky shift into shades of orange and purple. The silence between them was peaceful, not awkward. Temari felt at ease in a way she hadn't in years, as if she could let her guard down without fear. Naruto noticed how the fading light reflected in her eyes. She looked softer, calmer, almost serene. He didn't say anything, but he couldn't look away. Temari sensed his gaze but didn't stop him. When they walked back toward the village, their hands brushed lightly. Neither pulled away quickly enough. It wasn't intentional, yet the warmth lingered longer than either expected. At the village gate, Temari hesitated. The words she wanted to say, "You did well today, I'm glad you came, I missed this," stayed buried beneath years of discipline. Instead, she simply said, "Good night, Naruto." Naruto nodded, though something inside him pushed against the moment ending so soon. "Good night, Temari." They parted, but both turned back once without realizing the other had done the same. That night, Temari sat alone at her desk, papers untouched. Her mind kept drifting back to Naruto, the way he listened, the way he smiled, the way his presence felt unexpectedly grounding. She tried to brush it off as simple respect, but she couldn't ignore the unfamiliar flutter it left behind. Naruto lay awake on his futon, staring at the ceiling. He had faced countless enemies, but right now his heart felt like a puzzle he couldn't solve. Something about Temari pulled him in. A quiet strength, a calm confidence, a softness she rarely let anyone see. He replayed every moment of the day, analyzing emotions he didn't fully understand yet. Neither slept easily. Not from stress, but from something warm and new filling their minds. Morning arrived quietly. Naruto stepped outside early, hoping fresh air would clear the thoughts that had followed him all night. Temari was already discussing something with a guard when she noticed him. She approached with her usual confidence, but her eyes betrayed a hint of something gentler. You're awake early again, she observed. Naruto gave a small smile. Guess my mind was busy. Temari's expression softened subtly. I understand. They began walking through the village together. The rhythm felt natural now, too natural. When they passed a group of young Sangenin, the children rushed to Naruto immediately. He brightened, answering their questions, encouraging them, laughing with them. Temari watched him, feeling something warm settle in her chest. The way he interacted with others, open, kind, hopeful, reminded her why he inspired loyalty everywhere he went. Once the children ran back to training, Temari walked beside Naruto again. Without thinking, she leaned slightly closer, just enough to notice the faint scent of sand and leaves on him. A stray strand of her hair shifted in the wind and brushed her cheek. Before she could react, Naruto gently reached out to tuck it behind her ear. His touch was light, hesitant, almost shy. Temari froze. Not because she disliked it, but because the gesture was unexpectedly intimate. Naruto's eyes widened as he realized what he'd done. Sorry. I didn't. I mean, it was just. Temari placed a hand briefly over her heart to steady the flutter there. Her voice came out softer than she intended. It's all right. Their eyes met, and for a moment the world seemed to narrow around them. The air felt warmer,